What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the FCS Dynasty here on NCAA 06, featuring that next mod as well. And we got 8 games on tap here as we get ready to reach that first third of the season. We're completing that here today, and we got some great matchups on tap for you guys. Make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, as that helps me out that YouTube algorithm. And of course, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand spanking new to the channel, as we will jump right into the action. We will not wait any longer. We got our first game of the day. Rhode Island taking on the number 19 ranked team in the nation, Sam Houston State. But the Cardiac Cats, they are not going to get off to a very good start here at all. Rhode Island, they are actually going to garner themselves an interception early. And that Rhode Island defense, year number 1 over for Dion Kirby. He's hanging tough here early on, and it's been a really surprising performance for Rhode Island thus far. We'll see if Sam Houston can crack this defense up a little bit, as we will see. Dropping back the pass, looking over to the left-hand side. He's going to go deep downfield, and it's going to be caught. Huge playing downfield, as that looks like that is Albert Miniacci, who's going to come down, make that catch. Mike Miniacci, I meant to say. But Mike Miniacci's going to get the carry here, but he's going to put the football on the ground, though. And Rhode Island is actually going to recover. Interesting development there, as this was actually a very sluggish first half. Sam Houston, they got off to a very slow start, as you guys certainly saw there. But that being said, second half, we start to see a little bit more momentum on the offensive end, as we see David Bullock trying to throw this football in the back of the end zone, but it does end up being deflected away. It does lead to a 2nd and 10 from the 11-yard line, but Williams, he's going to run it up the middle and is going to finally find the end zone. It's a touchdown for the Cardiac Cats. And Sam Houston State, they are going to take a 10-0 lead here. Great run there by Williams. And so that allows Sam Houston State to take a 10-3 lead. Still pretty close. We'll see if that changes going into the final quarter of action. We start with a kickoff return down the sideline. He's got some space to work. He's got one man left to beat. He's able to leave him in the dust, and he is going to be gone. Touchdown, Cardiac Cats. And Sam Houston State, they are going to go ahead and extend their lead. That makes it now 17-3. And at this point, David Bullock, I thought he was going to find a rhythm. He had Craig Gregg all by himself. He had a step, but just could not get enough on that football. Wasn't sure if it was because of the pressure that was starting to come in, but that is very unfortunate. That could have very well been a touchdown if that was actually not underthrown. But it will not kill the Cardiac Cats here today, as Sam Houston State, with less than 2 minutes left to play here in this football game, they are going to find their way into the end zone one last time. And the Cardiac Cats, they will go ahead and remain undefeated on the season. They now get to 2-0, as Sam Houston State wins this one by a final score of 24-3. It was a very admirable effort there by Dion Kirby and this Rhode Island coaching staff. But at the end of the day, that talent gap was just a little bit too big to overcome. And so Sam Houston State, they do win this football game, and as they try to make a dream come true in terms of making it to their very first FCS playoff appearance. So now we jump into the next game that we got planned here in this episode. We got the number 5 team in the land, Southeast Missouri State. They are going to take on a fellow top 25 ranked team in the country here. To start off conference play, we got Western Kentucky and Southeast Missouri State, a top 25 matchup. Several top 25 matchups going on in this episode, man. We're going to find out who's a contender and who's a pretender. We're going to find that stuff out extremely quickly, as Southeast Missouri State, that offense is led by the sophomore quarterback Tyler Johnson. He's been having a solid season so far. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and you quickly see why Western Kentucky got to where they were as well. They are a top 5 teams in terms of yards per game, but it's going to be a slow start for the Hilltoppers as Bam Bam Hendricks, he is going to fall onto the fumble, and that allows the Redhawks to get a field goal on the board. So Southeast Missouri State, they get a early 3-0 lead, and Travis Johnson, man, I'll tell you what, he really did come to play today, as we do end up seeing him witness a 81-yard touchdown. Play action was beautiful, one-on-one coverage, and that's just an easy throw for Travis Johnson to make. That now extends the lead as Southeast Missouri State continues to show that suffocating defense, but those special teams are something to be reckoned with as well. As Larry Scott, he's going to find a way, spinning, him doozing his way into the end zone. Does he high step? No, sir, but we will see another touchdown for the Redhawks, though. 17-0 going to be your score, unless we end up getting ourselves a little Drake moment right now, going back to back like a Drake song after another 3-and-out for Western Kentucky. As Larry Scott, he's gonna get the ball once again, and he knows how to make plays when the ball is in his hand. Touchdown, Redhawks make that 24-0. And don't say, is it gonna be a three-peat? No chance, right? No chance that they kick to him again, and they do. This man gets 3 touchdowns in the same game off of punt returns. Just, what are we accomplishing here, boys? That is a legitimate question of mine, and that means Travis Johnson doesn't even have to do much. He only has 8 pass attempts to this point in the game, and it's a 31-3 lead, so a very dominant performance for the Redhawks, but it's not going to be perfect, though, as we see Brandon Henderson able to get that interception, and that should give Western Kentucky a little bit more life, but we'll see if that actually happens or not, as we got a 3rd and long, looking downfield. He's going to try the Southeast Missouri State defense, and it's going to be caught. Touchdown, Southeast. No, Western Kentucky. I got so used to them Redhawks scoring, man. They've been fun to watch this season. What can I say? Hope y'all can forgive me for that. But still a 3-score lead here as we see Southeast Missouri State. Travis Johnson dropping back to pass. Clean pocket up the middle of the field. Delivers a strike. And we will see yet another touchdown for the Redhawks. This makes it 38-10 your score after the successful extra point opportunity. As now Western Kentucky still trying to find some sort of footing. They have basically waved the white flag on this game, I would say, and it shows. It shows in the effort. It's just what it barrels down to. The effort really shows, especially in the second half. Southeast Missouri State, they are going to march on, and they are going to win this football game pretty convincingly. 45-10 going to be your final score here, and we're going to find out as the season progresses. Is Southeast Missouri State that good, or is Western Kentucky just a bunch of frauds who got a little bit lucky and got themselves into the top 25 strictly because of that? So we jump into what is being considered the game of the week here in week number 5. We got the number 8 ranked Akron Zips. They go on the road to start Maction as they take on the number 14 ranked Eastern Michigan Eagles out in Ypsilanti, Michigan, home of a former Greek war hero, by the way. And this Akron offense is led by a pretty underrated quarterback, actually. Steve Spurlock is quarterbacking for the Akron Zips, and that's exactly why Lee Corso is going to be rocking with this Akron squad. We'll see if that actually holds up. Does the Zips win on the road? We jump in towards the end of the first quarter. Still a pretty tight game. Only 3-0 in favor of Eastern Michigan. However, what we've seen in many of these top 25 matchups, when you see two really good teams go up against each other, that difference, it just might be the special teams. As you can see the total offense, Akron has the edge, but because of special teams specifically, Eastern Michigan got that 10-0 lead. As we'll see Brent Tretzell take the run on the outside, breaks a tackle. How about that for a strong, tough run from your quarterback? I mean, look at this. Also, shout out to that offensive lineman for, pushing some bodies out of the way as well. That was impressive in its own right. But so is this Eastern Michigan squad. They are looking extremely impressive here in the early going of this ball game. They're going to actually take themselves a 27-0 lead as we get midway into the third quarter. Tretzell, he's got multiple options in the back of the end zone, and he's going to find his man. Yet another touchdown for the Eagles of Eastern Michigan, and we now got ourselves a 34-0 game. Can Steve Spurlock get his team right, at least provide a little bit of momentum? And that is a good way to get that offense right back on track. Steve Spurlock dropping it right in the bucket, and it ends up being a 78-yard touchdown pass that will help Akron cut into this lead a little bit. We are still talking about a 27-point lead here. Is now 34-7, still going to be your score. Spurlock dropping back, facing the pressure. It's going to be fumbled on the ground, and we get ourselves a scoop and score. Another touchdown for Eastern Michigan. As the turnovers, they've been the story of this game. Eastern Michigan, they only end up turning the football over one singular time, whereas Akron, they have 6 turnovers in this game. You're not going to beat a lot of people in the FCS if you have 6 turnovers, much less a top 25 team on the road. In Eastern Michigan, they simply took advantage of the situation and remain undefeated here in year number 4. So early on, we may have seen some blowouts here in the gameplay, but we get a slightly different story here in terms of simulation in the early going. We start out with Rice taking on Northeastern as the winless Huskies trying to notch their first win, and they'll have to wait. Rice wins 28-7 to bolster their record to 3-1. Also participating in action within the top 25, we got Texas Southern playing host to Morgan State, and Texas Southern also taking care of business. They win in blowout fashion 45-14 to maintain their number 16 national ranking. Now, a team that is trying to claw back into the top 25 is New Mexico State. They are going to go to 3-2 after a 45-0 win over Southern Utah. As for the Thunderbirds, this is their first loss of the season. As for San Diego State, they started their conference play against Northern Iowa, and Northern Iowa's home field advantage was not enough. San Diego State wins 42-10 to remain unbeaten here in year number 4. As for Ball State, they finally get themselves into the win column. They blow out Indiana State, who's under NCAA sanctions. Ball State Cardinals win 46-12. The Indiana State Sycamores falling to 1-3. Also looking to get back into the top 25 is Eastern Carolina as they took on Towson in conference play, and Eastern Carolina blows the doors open, 39-7 being your final score. As for South Carolina State, though, they went on the road to play against Howard in conference action. In South Carolina State, they had a tougher test than imagined, but still found a way to win. 31-21 ends up being your final score there. And finally, to wrap up the noon window, we have SMU taking on Richmond in conference play, and Richmond gave SMU a tough time but could not pull it out. SMU escapes with a 40-35 victory over Richmond. But now we go to a matchup here in the FCS Dynasty that I personally thought should have been the game of the week. We got number 11 Sacramento State going all the way across the country to take on the number 7 ranked Southern Jaguars, who have been back on the prowl, and they are led by their junior starter, Justin Jones, one of your custom guys, by the way, former number 1 recruit. We'll see if they can help his team notch a top 15 victory. But first, we're going to check in on the Sacramento State offense, who's going to get a really massive run over the middle of the field. And it's going to be Sacramento State. They are not feeling weak coming off the bus. They are feeling as loose as one could be. And Sacramento State, they put the pressure on the Southern Jaguars early, but so can Carlos Hall. Just kidding. No, he cannot. It's going to be intercepted by Zoo Animal, a fellow junior custom who just gave Southern some absolutely phenomenal field position to work with right now. You absolutely love to see it. Carlos Hall also taking a shot, by the way, and we'll see if Southern can also go ahead and punch it in. Justin Jones, he's going to line up in the shotgun formation. He's going to get it off the pace, and he's going to pace his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Southern Jaguars. And we got ourselves a tie ball game down in Baton Rouge. We'll see if the Bayou can get rocket even more. Jones looking to the left-hand side, but that's also going to be intercepted. Oh, you absolutely hate to see it. That is Gavin Washington, who already made a couple of tackles in this game. He's going to be able to pick off Justin Jones, only his second interception that he's thrown this season. And now here comes the Sacramento State Hornets. Hall dropping back, going to look over the middle, gets it out to the tight end. Tight end shakes a tackle down the sideline, and he's going to be dropped down eventually at about that 10-yard line. Nice job by the tight end to run away from some defenders as well, showing a little bit of speed. Zoo Animal actually had to come in and make the tackle eventually, but it might be too little too late as the fullback is actually going to get a little bit involved here. And that is how Sacramento State is going to muster up yet another touchdown. The Hornets looking extremely good in their road test. They're now up 17-7. It's now 3rd and long from the 41-yard line, midway through second quarter. Jones under center, goes play action. He's got some time, gonna throw over the right hand side, and it's a tight window, but he fits it right through. And that's going to be a massive first down for the Southern Jaguars. Great throw by Justin Jones. And we'll see if his team can finish the drive. 10 for 11 on red zone opportunities this season. Jones looks over the middle. It's dropped. And it lands in the hands of a linebacker. You can't fully blame that on Justin Jones. At least not this time around. I mean, we'll see if we can get this throw a second time. As, listen, it was kind of in the hands of the receiver who got to come down. And if you're not going to make the catch, at least bat it down, right? But instead, Sacramento State, they're going to take over at the 20-yard line as Carlos Hall facing some intense pressure. That is Seth Mitchell, who's going to notch his 10th career sack. A nice milestone for him as he's part of a very good Southern defense, top 10 in the country in terms of yards allowed per game. But Carlos Hall, he has some other plans, but he's going to throw it into the hands of a defensive player, Anthony Cunningham. He's going to get his first interception here of the entire season. So neither team really trying to pull away. It's been a little bit more sloppy here in that second quarter, right? But can Justin Jones capitalize himself? Second and short. They go with a straight passing play. He looks to the right-hand side, and his receiver is going to go ahead and make a nice leaping grab. So another red zone chance here for the Southern Jaguars before we go into the halftime locker room. Jones under center, moves the fullback out. He brings him back in eventually. We'll see what they end up doing. It's going to be a pass. Jones going to try to spin away from a defender. Houdini is in the building. Touchdown, Justin Jones. He made multiple defenders miss. And now it's just a field goal game. Can the Hornets respond? Over the middle, it's picked off. It's intercepted. Southern could very well take the lead here before we go into that halftime locker room. As Carlos Hall, he has been bamboozled. He has been flabbergasted by this defense. And it's not looking great for him individually, but they do force a 3 and out. So Sacramento State, they do get one more chance for points before we go into halftime, as we do see Jacob Hill get a little bit involved. He's a conference all nominee from his freshman year. He's now a sophomore. We'll see if they go back to him again. It looks like he just might mess around, and Moss, Zoo Animal, in the end zone. Touchdown, Sacramento State. And Jacob Hill is going to help extend the Hornets' lead. The Jaguars now looking at a 10-point deficit. Last play of the first half. Jones is just going to let it rip. He's going to get hit as he throws the football, but not always going to get intercepted. This might be taken back to the crib, and it is. So a Hail Mary goes absolutely wrong there, and that's going to be a huge swing. So instead of it being just 17-14, last couple of minutes, we saw Sacramento State get those quick points. And while Southern did get the ball to start the second half, they drive down and get a field goal. It just feels like today is Sacramento State's day. We're going to see this receiver take it down the sideline. He's got some space to work. No one's going to be able to catch him in the Southern return team. And he is also going to high step his way into the end zone. That is going to be a touchdown for the Hornets. And that now makes it 38-17 now, as Hall looks to throw to the left-hand side once again. Throws it up for Espinoza. And Joseph Pierre Martin will combine to make the tackle with Zoo Animal. But it is yet another red zone chance. And Sacramento State has been perfect on the year when it comes to these types of situations. Hall looks over the middle of the field, and it's not 9 for 9. His receiver drops it, and it's from an extraordinarily hard hit. That looks like Zoo Animal that laid the lumber. Is now third down, looking towards the end zone again. It's caught. Touchdown, Sacramento State. That is the big burly tight end, Mawson, a linebacker. That's going to be a mismatch 9 times out of 10. And now 45-17 is going to be your score. And this Hornets defense, it is absolutely enforcing its will right now. They are doing whatever they want to do. As now 1:30 left to play. We'll see if Southern can at least come out and get some points, something to feel good about before this game does come to an end. Very unlikely that Southern will end up winning this game, but seeing some good performances from the Jaguars. Carlos Adams, he's now closing in on 100 yards on the day. It's been a pretty good performance for him overall. As now we jump in, 1st and 10 from the 33-yard line. We see Zoo Animal get player of the game for the Southern Jaguars, but we'll see if some things change here as they try to set up the halfback pass back to Justin Jones. And that is not going anywhere, as that is Marcus Johnson, who has been pretty active, in terms of that run support. He will make his 12th tackle of the season. But they still find a way to get into the red zone. 3 for 4 for Southern. Jones, he's going to get it out on the perimeter. Out the pace, and he will paste his way back into the end zone once again. And that will be a touchdown for the Southern Jaguars. It does cut it to a few possessions. It makes the score look a little bit better if you're just box score watching. But it was very clear what happened here today. Sacramento State, they came to play, and they certainly delivered, getting a big-time win on the road against the number 7 team in the nation. And we'll see if this propels Sacramento State into that top 10 or not. I personally think that it should, because this is an extremely impressive victory for the Sacramento State Hornets as we say goodbye to what should have been game of the week. But we will keep ourselves in the Southeast as we have not necessarily a top 25 matchup, but could have some big implications in the initial start of the Big Ten Conference race. We got number 23 Tennessee Martin, who is off to a good start, 2-0 on the year, taking on a fellow 2-0 squad, the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles, as both teams seek to go to one of their better starts here in this dynasty. looking to get that illustrious 3-0 start. As now we jump right into it, looking at Donnie Jacobs, quarterbacking for the Tennessee Martin Skyhawks. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions so far. It's been a pretty solid year for the young quarterback. And we'll see if he can lead yet another touchdown drive here early as Jacobs. He's going to throw one towards the end zone, and right away, he is going to go ahead and make it touchdown number 5. As the Skyhawks, they are going to be soaring early. They are going to make this an early 7-0 lead here. As Tennessee Martin looking good from the start. As Jacobs looks again over the left-hand side, but it's going to be intercepted. But there is a penalty on the field, though, and it looks like it's going to be a holding penalty that will give Tennessee Tech the football right back. So Greg Albin's interception, it will still stand, and that will give Tennessee Tech at least a little bit of breathing room. But early on, their offense not really doing much, so the defense really have to come through and really make some big plays all throughout the day. And that is what we are going to see thus far. Paul Meyer, he's going to get yet another interception. This time not on Donnie Jacobs, but the ball was thrown in his general direction, though. As we'll see Chase Jones trying to run up the middle of the field himself, but he also puts the ball on the ground. So like we've seen in elements of the Sacramento State and Southern game, we're also seeing quite a few turnovers in this glorified battle of Tennessee. But the Skyhawks still have an advantage. 10-3 going to be your score as Chase Jones lines up in the shotgun. He's got max protection. Looking over the middle of the field, and he throws an absolute dot. That will be a huge first down for the Golden Eagles. Huge catch made there. As Tyron Butler was the one that made that reception. He's having a good day. Free catch for 76 yards. You love to see it. As Jones looks again over to the left-hand side, and he wants it all or nothing, but it's going to be nothing, as that will also end up being intercepted. So we've already seen multiple turnovers by either side here in the first half of action, and whoever cleans it up more in the second half is going to end up winning this game. That's what I feel, from the bottom of my heart. We'll jump right back into the thick of things. Chris Harris, he is the sophomore custom and kicker for the Skyhawks. He is going to kick it off, and Tennessee Tech, they are just going to go ahead and run it right back in the opposite direction. So now we got ourselves a tied game. We got ourselves a very competitive game as of right now. And Tennessee Tech, man, they are starting to get some confidence for sure, as that is their running back that is going to throw a nice football, to be honest with you. And it's going to be another red zone opportunity for those Golden Eagles. As now, Chase Jones is going to look to the right-hand side. Looks it out to Tyron Butler. But that man was just simply not open. He was like macaroni on cheese, to be honest with you guys. And that will stop Tennessee Tech's drive. An opportunity for them to really take the lead. And Tennessee Martin, they just go ahead. 15-play drive. This is play number 16. It ends in a touchdown for the Skyhawks. So that is really a morale-depriving type of drive that we just witnessed right there. This was a 16-play drive that went 90-plus yards. That is how you take the will out of a football team. Things like that. And for Tennessee Martin, it gets even better. Chase Jones is going to throw an interception here, and that does go all the way back to the crim, and that will go into the end zone. That is another touchdown for Tennessee Martin. That makes it 24-10. That will be your current score. As now we jump back in. Last couple of minutes. So you saw that pick six that you would think would pretty much solidify things, but then something interesting happens here. Chase Jones, he's gonna, get a little bit of a rhythm here to end this game, and his receiver not only makes a huge catch downfield, but runs it all the way down inside the 10-yard line. So that does temporarily stop the clock. I will be interested to see if they try to do some kind of no huddle, as we will go ahead and see 54 seconds left still on the clock they need this touchdown in the worst way. Jones got a high snap, but still gets it out to the right. He's got very little time to get rid of the football, and does. And it ends up being a touchdown for the Golden Eagles. So it ends up being a one-possession game, and it's not done yet. Tennessee Martin with a chance to close this game out. They did get the onside kick, but the ball is fumbled. And Tennessee Martin, they are going to recover. The Golden Eagles, they got a chance to win the football game, but at least force it into overtime. But unfortunately, too little, too late. Tennessee Martin's final drive, or Tennessee Tech's final drive, does end up falling short, and Tennessee Martin, they are going to escape with a very narrow victory that they almost found a way of blue. They were up 24-10 with a few minutes left, and they almost found a way to blow this game completely. But a win is a win at the end of the day, and sometimes with FCS football, it's all about surviving and advancing. That really all that does barrel down to. So now we got the number 1 team in the land taking on a SEC opponent, the Citadel, who is not too shabby themselves. They are ranked number 40 nationally within the FCS. So a top 40 matchup, a good matchup for Georgia Southern to give them a nice little gauge of where they currently stand. As we're going to see the conference standings right now, McNeese State's looking good. So very important for Georgia Southern to get off to a good start here, as we will go ahead and see both teams come out onto the football field, as they are led by, of course, by the Heisman runner-up last season, Ikedo Woods, who, hey, he doesn't pass the football very often, okay? We know that's not him. We've seen him since a freshman. That's not what he does, but what he does have is a great supporting cast. David Abdullah being one of those guys, as Dixon, he's going to take an absolute shot here. And then we'll go ahead and see everybody's favorite Road to Glory wide receiver, Ostrander. He's going to kick things away and gets it out to the dynamic running back, Blake Williams, down the sideline. And just like that, Georgia Southern, they are going to take themselves a quick lead. Ends up being a 50-yard return for a touchdown, and that will make it 7-0 in favor of the Eagles. Later on in the game, though, Dixon will try to throw deep downfield and wanted to make something happen, but it's just one of those things where, listen, Georgia Southern's not going to give you a lot on defense, so you got to identify, what they're giving you and just take that, and that's not what Dixon did whatsoever. And now this turns into a game that really favors Georgia Southern game script. We'll see how the Citadel defense can respond, as Ikedo Woods does call out audibles here at the Citadel, as Ikedo Woods runs the option. He's going to run it into the end zone, and it's going to be a touchdown for the Eagles. Ikedo Woods officially making it a 14-0 lead. And that is Ikedo Woods using that elite speed as a quarterback. When a quarterback's able to do this, it just means a very long day for those that has to defend it all day long. And there's just a lot of weapons on this team. Ikedo Woods, of course, one of them. He's going to actually stiff arm a defender. Are you serious right now? Absolutely insane stuff. And that will now also make it a 21-0 game. That will be Ikedo Woods' second rushing touchdown of the afternoon, as Dixon desperately trying to get something going on the ground, but it's going to be fumbled here. We do see a scrum for it, and it looks like DeAndre Dowdell was on the pile. He did not recover it. Looks like this defensive lineman did, though. Looks like David Abdullah that got his hands on the football ultimately, as they were trying to set up that quarterback draw, and Dixon's just not conducive. He's not a mobile quarterback. That is just not how he is, but Georgia Southern, they certainly know who they are. Another touchdown, this time going to Blake Williams, his first rushing touchdown on the ground. He does also have that punt return touchdown as well. So Georgia Southern, they are looking really good in this matchup, 28-0 being that score. And now we'll see some of the backups get a little bit more run here. Jeff Boston has to step up, given Joseph Krakowski is actually suspended. So this opens up some playing time for the true freshman. And look, to Jeff Boston's credit, he steps up extremely well here. He's going to get a rushing touchdown here late. And then Ikeda Woods, he's going to also get his guys into the red zone once again. This is all still in the first half, by the way. It feels like a lot of Georgia Southern highlights, but I mean, today it was just that dominating of a day. But look at what Jeff Boston does here. Number 3, he's going to be able to run a really nice route, and that will go ahead and get him into the end zone once again. It will end up being yet another touchdown for the Georgia Southern Eagles. It ends up being 42-0 at the half, and of course the Eagles do run away with this game. They end up winning by a final score of 66-0. You want to talk about sending a message here to start conference play? This is exactly how you do it. So after we get through the afternoon slate, let's go back to the studio to check out some other FCS scores around the country. We start with Utah State, who comes in number 13 in the country, and they should still keep that ranking as they blow out the Idaho Vandals 41-10, and Utah State remains undefeated on the season. But we do get some blowouts here in the afternoon slate, as well as Southeastern Louisiana played host to Wofford to start their conference season, and the Southeastern Lions, they blow the doors, winning 54-0 as Southeastern gets themselves back to 500. But we also have our most shocking simulated game in the entire season. Delaware State is going to stun the defending national champions. 31-17 ends up being your score. The Delaware State Hornets win their first game of the season, whereas New Hampshire, they lose by 2 touchdowns, and it will be interesting to see where they fall in the next AP poll. But just because that sun is setting does not mean that the action does not get any less intense. Eastern Kentucky, the number 20 team in the nation, they go on the road to Lincoln Financial Field to take on the number 12 team in the nation, the Temple Owls. But Temple, they are a little bit short-handed. They got multiple injuries and suspensions. This is actually their backup quarterback, Brian Brewer, who has stepped in pretty well in spite of the circumstances. 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the season. But Eastern Carolina, they were initially handling Lincoln Financial Field well, but a very costly interception thrown by Ryan Coates is going to put the Temple Owls in the red zone just to start this drive. Not what you wanted to see. Temple will end up getting a field goal out of it. It does end up being a really competitive game throughout, but in that second half, Eastern Kentucky really starts to enforce its will a little bit. We see Coates really start to get into his bag when the game matters the most. Temple trying to go ahead. They try to do an all-out blitz, and that just simply does not work. And now Eastern Kentucky, they build their lead up 13-3. Does end up being your score as it ends up being intercepted down the sideline. It's going to be a pick 6. Touchdown. Ryan Spencer with a massive play that could have very well sealed this game for the Eastern Kentucky Colonels on the road. If they can hang on and win, this would be a big time win for this football program, who did make it to the FCS playoffs last year. Is now with 1 minute left to play, looking to get a couple more points on the board, and they do. So listen, the score is not going to look as competitive as what this game truly was, but Eastern Kentucky, they play their best quarter of football. They save it for last, and a 27-3 lead should be your final score, unless we see some action here late in the game. But yet another interception actually is going to make this a 30-plus point victory. So they're going to get the extra point. It makes it 34-3, and just a great performance, especially by that Eastern Kentucky defense. That defense really stepped up in this top 25 matchup once again, and Eastern Kentucky, they will come out on top. They win 34-3, and Temple's going to get blown out on their home field. This is the first time that they actually played somebody. Yes, they did make the playoffs last year, but they had similar issues. They ended up losing once they played a legitimate opponent, and that's exactly what we saw here. So we'll see if Temple is able to rebound, or will we not see them in the playoffs this year? And finally, we have another top 25 matchup, this time in the Big 12 Conference. We got Arkansas Pine Bluff, the number 24 team in the nation. They are taking on the number 4 team in the country, Western Carolina, who, in spite of the NCAA sanctions that does prevent them from going to the FCS playoffs, that being said, they are making the most of these games that they are getting right now, because Western Carolina, I'll tell you what, outstanding football team. Really, what else is there to be said? And they're going to certainly be tested here at home, as Arkansas Pine Bluff coming off a win against Alabama as well. FBS, SEC, like actual SEC Alabama, right? So it's going to be an interesting game to see how it goes for either of these two teams. But Western Carolina, they get off to a good start. They are not intimidated by the home crowd here early on, and they jump out to a good lead. 2-possession lead, dare I say it? Yes, it is, as it is caught by Brian Kahn, the true freshman, in the end zone. Touchdown, Catamounts. And that is a 47-yard touchdown from Michael Young to Brian Kahn. And the Catamounts, they hop all over the Golden Lions early. 17-0 ends up being your score, as Niall Matthews, meanwhile, struggles mightily. He's going to throw a really boneheaded interception here. Mike McClellan is going to get the interception. That is going to be his second interception here of the season. And now Western Carolina, they get another chance to score. They will add some more points, a 20-0 lead. But then we jump into that second quarter. Young, we're going to build that lead even further. He's going to try to throw over the middle to a diving Brian Kahn. But we see Jacob Brightman get in front of it as the junior. If Arkansas Pine Bluff starts to rally back, that's exactly why. As now Arkansas Pine Bluff with a chance to finally get themselves on the board, but it's also going to be intercepted. Niall Matthews throws his second interception of this football game, and Western Carolina all over the Golden Lions right now. He was open, but just threw it a little late. You had to throw that to the outside. It was thrown to the inside instead. So now Niall Matthews looks to get back on track as he gets it out to his receiver. And his receiver does the rest of the work. They will find the end zone for the first time. So the Golden Lions, they will not be blanked here, as that will be a touchdown for Arkansas Pine Bluff, cutting this down to a 13-point lead. And then things get interesting. 3 minutes left to play. We got a fumble on the ground, and it's going to be recovered by the Golden Lions. Going to try and rally back here in this game. That is Alford that makes the play on the football. And now we'll see what they got. Matthews looks over the middle. He's going to throw it into the end zone. Touchdown, Golden Lions. Getting the true junior Doug Rose involved in the offense. They cut it down to 6, but after a failed onside kick, Western Carolina does hang on. But this was an incredibly competitive game. I really felt the fighting spirit between both of these two teams. Arkansas Pine Bluff, they seem to have the real potential to make their first FCS playoff appearance. Even though they just took their very first loss of the entire season, they're definitely a team to monitor, but a good win nonetheless for the Catamounts of Western Carolina. So before we go ahead and take a look into those conference standings for the first time this season, let's take a look at a couple more scores that are of more notice. We start with James Madison. They actually got the pleasure of taking on an FBS opponent, the Penn State Nittany Lions, and they actually gave them a good fight. 42-34 ends up being that final score. So the Dukes fall to 1-2, but I don't think they should be falling all that far, considering they did play against a Power 5 squad. But one team that I do expect to plunge significantly is the Golden Flashes of Kent State. They fall at home in their conference opener to the Ohio Bobcats. Ohio wins 24-17. It's Kent State's first loss of the season. We'll have to see how far they fall as well. So we made it through 5 weeks of FCS football to begin the season, and now we're going to take our first real deep dive into the conference standings just to kind of get a gauge of where everybody is at this point in the season. We'll go ahead and start off in alphabetical order. We'll start off with the ACC conference, and already some surprises. Maine gets off to a really strong start. They're 2-0, 4-0 overall as well, but they are not ranked. Neither is Delaware, who did win this conference last season after a stunning win over New Hampshire in the conference championship game. They're also tied for first place, but you got teams like Bethune-Cookman, South Carolina State, and Florida A&M that are all right on the heels. For the most part, this is a very competitive division. Now, over on the coastal side, we do have some pretty open races going on as well, given what happened to New Hampshire in this episode. Right now, we got a four-way tie with North Carolina A&T, Delaware State, New Hampshire, and Hampton, all tied for first place in the Coastal. We are still waiting for James Madison to play their conference games, but they are just 1-2 in this point, and they're also not ranked in the top 25. Norfolk State's in last place with a 2-3 record. Up next, we got the Big Ten Conference, who recently started their action here in this episode, at least conference play. We see 4 teams from the Big Ten win their openers. We see Southeast Missouri State, Tennessee Martin, who's now number 19 in the country, the Tennessee State Tigers, and Eastern Illinois all garnered their very first wins here in Big Ten Conference play. Jacksonville State and Eastern Kentucky, who's number 13 in the country, they still have to play their initial conference games along with Sanford. Now, we do have a few teams that did lose their conference openers. Western Kentucky did lose to Southeastern Missouri, so that's understandable. Tennessee Tech lost a close one to Tennessee Martin. Murray State lost to Eastern Illinois, so that's a shocking loss for them. And then probably the biggest disappointment from this conference, Youngstown State, after starting in the AP Top 25, they're off to an 0-3 start. Meanwhile, over in the Big 12 Conference, we are seeing some teams that, could work themselves into the AP Top 25. They're not there already. Alabama State, Grambling State, and Chattanooga. They're all teams to certainly watch out for as this conference slate progresses further, with Alcorn State and Jackson State possibly could do some things as well. But Ark-Pine Bluff actually remains in the top 25 despite losing their conference opener against Western Carolina. Now, over in the South Division, could be interesting to see who represents, because Western Carolina and Texas Southern, they are both under NCAA sanctions, so they cannot compete for the the automatic bid for this conference. But a couple of teams to watch out for here. Mississippi Valley State, they're 2-1. They're off to a good start to this season. Prairie View A&M is also 2-1 to this point. They're also off to a solid start. And the Southern Jaguars, they're 2-1 as well. They're still ranked in the top 10 in spite of a home loss to the Sacramento State Hornets. Alabama A&M, meanwhile, is in last place, but they are also not winless. They're 1-2 on the year. As for the Big East Conference, they are starting their conference play as well. The Ivy League could see a new representative. Cornell off to a great start, 3-1 overall with a 1-0 conference record. Harvard and Penn also took care of their business to start Ivy League play, so they are not going to be winless at the very least. Speaking of winless teams, Brown and Columbia are in this same category, so that's a tough look for arguably the least talented conference in the NCAA, at least in this series right here. Dartmouth lost their conference opener, as did Princeton and Yale, the final team of which just started their 2-year NCAA probation, so they would not be eligible for the NCAA playoffs even if they won the Ivy League. Now over to Conference USA, Eastern Carolina sits on top as of right now with William & Mary with a half-game deficit along with UCF. Richmond is also hanging in. They're only 0-1 with a 1-2 overall record thus far. As for the West Side, a 3-way tie for first place as of right now between SMU and Rice, who are both in the top 25, along with the Charleston Cougars, who have won their last couple of games. Tulane and Villanova sitting one game back, each 1-1 in initial conference action. As for the IA Independents, 2 teams over 500 at this point. UMass and Temple both 3-1 as of so far, with Rhode Island and Morgan State struggling pretty handily here in the early going. Up next, we have the MAC Conference, and only one team from the East winning a conference game. That is Ohio, with their 3-1 overall record. Akron lost their first game, so they're 4-1. But also seeing Kent State, Indiana State, Buffalo, and Illinois State all losing their initial conference openers, which does end up meaning that the MAC West is feasting early on in conference play. Central Michigan currently sitting on top. They are back in the AP top 25 after their win to start the conference season. Eastern Michigan's in the top 10, but also tied for first place is Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, and Ball State, all of which trying to make their first FCS playoff appearance. Western Michigan is in last place. They are the bottom feeders of this division right now. Up next, we have the Mountain West Conference, and we do have a freeway tie early on. San Diego State, Denver, and UNLV are tied for first place. But we also got teams like Northern Iowa, Southern Missouri State, and South Dakota all still in the picture, as is Omaha, South Dakota State, and the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So, still a lot to play for in this conference for sure. As for the Pac-10, though, they have actually not played any conference games as of yet, but overall this conference has played extremely well. You see teams like Sacramento State, Portland State, and North Dakota State, for example, 3 teams in the top 10. Plus, you got Weber State, who's number 24. They get into the AP top 25 as well. Not to mention teams like North Dakota, Montana, also looking good for the conference. The only 3 teams that are below 500 are Eastern Washington, Idaho State, and the Montana State Bobcats, who are winless. Going back to divisional action, we got the SEC Conference now. McNeese State currently sitting at 2-0, so they have a half-game lead over the number 1 team in the land, the Georgia Southern Eagles. We'll see if that changes as the season goes on. Wofford actually has a conference win, so they are only a game back. We'll see if Wofford can rally here as we get close to the second half of the season, with Texas State, Nicholls State, and the Citadel all 0-1. Meanwhile, in terms of looking over the Western Division, we have a little bit of surprise here, as Appalachian State, after going winless in year number 3, they are tied for first place along with the Southeastern Louisiana Lions, so that is an interesting development. Sam Houston State, who's number 15, have not played a conference game yet, along with Elon, with Furman and Northwestern State all 0-1 to start SEC action. Up next, we have the Sun Belt, and what we quickly got going on, since the Sun Belt does not have an auto bid. Right now, no team seems like they are ranked in the AP top 25, but there is a freeway tie for first place between North Texas, Florida Atlantic, and Arkansas State. And finally, we have the WAC Conference, who's got a 4-way tie for first place right now. As of this recording, we got New Mexico State, Utah State, Stephen F. Austin, and the former Division III school, St. Thomas, all tied for first place in the WAC Conference. Oral Roberts is not too far behind, though, along with Southern Utah, who are each 1-1. And then, of course, San Jose State and Northern Colorado, also just a game out. Idaho, the only team that really feels like they're out of it. So guys, that will wrap up week number 5 action of the FCS Dynasty. We got to see the conference standings in depth, and we got several national televised games I can't wait to show you guys in that next episode. It's going to be a fun one. We got including a game of the week out on the West Coast, but of course I will show you guys that in the next episode. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the content, I need you guys to do me a massive favor. Smack that like button for me, and then hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off, but I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.